This is a summary of the genomic view of the Bible. The main issue at stake is the character of God. Is God a selfless God of love, or is he a selfish God of hatred? God's character is reflected in the way he governs creation. His laws are natural laws that give us a consistent reality. We have freedom to live because his laws don't change. However, the Bible tells us that sin is transgression of the law. Sin originated when Satan sought to be like the Most High God and amended God's genetic law with transposable elements. Satan caused division in heaven by accusing God of being arbitrary, restrictive, and selfish. His argument was that creation should be given the freedom to change their genome at will. However, Satan's true motivation was to subvert the throne of God and take it for himself. God claims that his law is perfect and that the natural consequences of changing his law is death. We can support some of God's claims because transposable elements are implicated as the root cause in many diseases, cancers, and even actions and behaviors. In fact, I made the prediction that all disease is caused by transposable elements. I make this prediction based on another hypothesis that sin is transposable elements. Furthermore, the Bible is in harmony with science when read in a straightforward manner. The Bible can be read clearly when sin is understood to be changing genetic code. These definitions help understand the language in the Bible. When the Bible uses iniquity or unrighteousness, that is transposable elements. When the Bible uses sin, that is behavior originating from transposable elements. However, God's claim that sin causes death was not fully realized until Jesus died a sinner's death. More than that, the plan of salvation had to destroy transposable elements, provide salvation for the repentant, and show the final results of sin. Jesus is able to provide salvation because he suffered all things and never once yielded to sin. One way he could provide salvation is through the RNA-induced silencing complex and microRNAs. Pain and sufferings changed which parts of his genome were expressed and which transposable elements were open and available for transcription. If he, even by a thought, expressed transposable element circuitry, then the transposable elements would have proliferated. Instead, he was able to silence the transposable elements to the point where his brain circuitry could never respond to sin. Jesus had to die to prove that his solution could remove all transposable elements. Many genes that are only expressed during adolescence become active after death. Whatever the solution, Jesus had to prove that the transposable elements in these genes could be completely removed. Remember that God cannot change his law to provide salvation. That means that the original genetic design had to account for the possibility of sin. Most important of all, however, is that Jesus' death revealed the true nature of Satan's rebellion. Jesus never yielded even a single thought to sin. He lived a life in perfect obedience to God's law and was not deserving of death. Yet he still died. Jesus' life of perfect obedience isolated the effects of transposable elements. Only transposable elements could have caused Jesus to die. His death was the ultimate result of sin. He died the second death, the final death of a sinner. The fact that Jesus rose again showed that God had accounted for sin in his original design and that death had no hold over Jesus. Jesus showed that God indeed had creation's best interest in mind. He showed that God's law is perfect freedom for creation. That God would stoop so low to save the lost shows that his character is motivated by selfless love. Jesus can provide salvation to us because he conquered death. The same solution Jesus perfected in his life, he offers to us. We must stay grafted onto Jesus so that he may silence every transposable element and rewrite code that was lost since the fall of Adam. Only Jesus can provide the antidote for sin. To turn aside is certain death. This is what it means to be saved. We must put to death our worldly nature and be reborn into a spiritual nature. Salvation is a work of God's gracious creative power. It is a gradual process of shedding sin. Our work is to seek out every aspect of our being contrary to God's laws and submit to God that he may rewrite our genome. We can do this only with God's help. We have no capability to keep God's laws ourselves. Instead, come to God first, and then he will write his laws in you. We have nothing to fear in the judgment if we stay connected to Jesus. We aren't the ones being judged, God is. We should seek salvation because God is a God of love. He wants only the best for creation. That God would stoop so low and be obedient even to death to save a fallen race is evidence of his character. This is the gospel message. God is love.